Today we're having Dr. Ali Fenwick with me. He actually flew all the way to Croatia to promote his new book, which is Red Flags, Green Flags. It's actually a topic that we love to talk about on social media, which he's also, he's a big sensation on TikTok and Instagram. So I'm very flattered to have you here with us today.
Thank you for having me here on your podcast. I'm very happy to be here and to talk to you about red flags, green flags, and how it relates to our everyday life.
Good. I'm looking forward to it. So just to begin with, I've noticed that you are a massive fan of technology, and I've actually just heard you saying that you were fluent in many, many difficult world languages. So I wonder, how did you end up on social media?
Great question. Look, I initially started, my interest in social media started way before I was actually on social media. So around 2017, I was doing research on investigating how does, social media and our mobile phones impact our psychology? How does it in fact impact relationships? How does it impact our life? Because, we're living in a digitalized world, and screens are increasingly becoming a part of our lives. So we need to become more aware of how do these digital devices impact us. And so I've been doing research about, on that topic for a couple of years already. I was actually writing a book around that topic, but just very haphazardly based on the research that I was doing. And then I think about 3-4 years ago, eventually I wanted to better understand how Gen Z and the younger generation think, because they do think differently. But I wanted to understand, because also I'm teaching them and working with them. So I wanted to better understand how they were thinking and how they engaged with content and how they learned, etc. So I thought, what's the best place to learn? Go to social media, right? And analyze their their comments and how they engage with the content. And then eventually I was like, well, I think I could probably provide content, and I would love to learn how to reach them. That was kind of my idea, because in the classroom, it's different than when you're doing that online. And through a lot of practice and finding out what was the right strategy, I think I developed my own little niche and way of approaching people. And people love it. And, I talk about behavioral psychology. So I give people a psychological perspective to why they behave the way they do, or why they think the way they do, and what are the factors that influence their behavior. And I think that unique perspective, together with the delivery that I was providing online, really was something that no one was doing, to that level. And I think that was one of the reasons why eventually it just took off. And before I knew it, it became like a sensation eventually. So it's. Sometimes it feels like, is this real?
Yeah, I hear you.
Because especially it was not my intention to become famous on social media, and then look 3 years later, and a book right now as well. So it's been a beautiful development so far.
Well, congratulations on your new book.
Thank you.
I've actually read through it. I haven't read it entirely, but I will, because I actually think that all the chapters that I've seen, I can relate to them. And I think generally your content is something that everyone can relate to, because you don't talk about it from just one perspective. It just feels that you're an expert and you've seen a lot of different cases and different people. So you speak for all of those perspectives. And I think we feel seen when we watch your content.
Beautiful.
So that's what really matters when you write a book. I know it was written by a person who can actually understand me. So that's a great first step for me to go and buy it.
Wow, thank you. Thank you for saying that. And I think you hit the nail right on the head. When you are, and it's so interesting that you say this, because, as an academic, as a professor also, right? One of the roles that I have in my life, and you think that you're reaching everybody through academia in a classroom. You're not, right? You think that you're speaking to everybody, but you're not. And I think social media has taught me how to speak to everybody. And I think everyone should have access to information, right? And to learning. And so social media helped me to really, truly understand how to speak to the everyday person. And so when I wrote the book, I had that person in mind while I was writing the book, so that anyone from anywhere could relate to the content and could enjoy the content, but also could do something about it, if they saw something in themselves about it. So I'm really happy that you mentioned that, because that was the ultimate goal that I wanted to achieve.
Yes, I think when you get a divorce, or when you are hurt, and when you have a person to go to which you might even not know in your real life, you actually connect to them. Yeah. So I'm very happy to have you here. And I think I speak for all of us when I say that I'm looking forward to this episode so much, because there's so many questions that we have to ask you.
I love that you do that. Yeah.
But actually, one of the things that I had gained a lot of views and comments and engagement was the red flag, green flag series that I did. I actually did them, myself, and I wanted to see if people would agree with me and if we think the same. Yeah. So if you don't mind, I would love to ask you if you think these particular red flags that I think they are red flags are. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. But if don't, you can just say, I would love you to change my mind. I want to be more positive in human relationships. And
look, before we jump into that, I love that. Let's call it the red flag, green flag game that we can play together. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Red flags and green flags are subjective, right? They are subjective. Of course, there are certain red flags that are generally red flags across nations, across communities, etc. But there are also red flags sometimes that reflect that we are a red flag. And it's interesting because when we see a red flag in someone, it doesn't mean that it's a you problem. Sometimes it could be a reflection of our own red flag.
Okay, I'm not playing this game anymore. White towel on the floor. She's not doing this.
Let's play it.
No. Okay, good. Well, I'm glad we had this out. I'm going to change the game now. But no, this is more like a Balkan version of red flags.
I love it. Let's go.
And like all the stereotypes that we deal with day-to-day life. Yeah. So the first red flag that I think is a red flag is an adult male living with his parents. I don't know if you agree on this or not.
Ooh.
That's a tough one to start with.
That's a tough one. Look, by default, you would say in a society where everyone can live independently, and this is also a cultural question, right? Because in the Western, that's Western Europe, Western society in general, right? Not just Western Europe, but in a lot of industrialized countries around the world, we kind of expect man should live by himself, and then you'll move in with someone eventually and be partnered that way. But in other countries around the world, men don't leave the house until they get married. And so it's very normal in many cultures. And even then when they get married, their wife maybe comes and lives with their parents.
She did that. She lives with his parents. She's a walking red flag. No, you see, this is your point proven right there.
No. Well, look, the thing is, it's culturally dependent, this question. And another thing is, look, we live in a world today where, energy prices are extremely high. Economy is not doing so well. People can't afford to buy a house. It's not like 20 years ago that you could buy a house, right? So I think there's so many factors at play here that I would not want to call it a red flag. I would actually say, in many cases, there's nothing wrong with that. Maybe it's a guy that takes care of his parents because there's no one else taking care of his parents. So I think you would want to weed out the guy that is lazy, doesn't want to clean his room, wants mommy and daddy to take care of him, right? Because I think that's just a very small percentage versus the other green flag reasons why a guy could still be living together with his mom, his dad, or his parents.
This is such a good point. You left me speechless, which is not as often. So thank you for this.
You're welcome.
I've learned much. The second one was, he wanting to, for us to move with his parents. But this is more of a related to, him doesn't want to leave he doesn't want to leave the nest. He has all the possibilities, all the great, healthy parents. They are still working or employed because in Balkans we give birth pretty earlier than in Western countries. Yeah. So this for me is a red flag, but also I have personally moved, to his parents' home
Yeah.
because we couldn't afford buying a house.
There
And
you go.
it seemed as a better decision at the time.
Yeah.
And also, you know, when we started living together, it was tough. I had to make him come to my terms and me coming to his terms. We also had to include the parents because we are living together.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter that we don't see each other day-to-day basis, but we do live together.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, look, it's challenging, and I think where it could be even more problematic is how interfering are the parents in your lives. And sometimes parents are wonderful and they just kind of, don't worry about it, it's all fine. Kumbaya, you all live together in one house, which is great, right? Because maybe if you have kids, mother-in-law is there, can support you, or, you know. So I love that kind of unity of a family, because I don't think we have it as much anymore as we did in the past. But parents can be overbearing. Parents can be very dictating. It can also happen that when a new woman comes into the house, you know, the mother-in-law might feel kind of threatened, and even though you're their daughter, you know, now, and so, but those kind of let's say dynamics can emerge when you live together, all in one house together, and that can prove to be very challenging. You do hear a lot of parents, a lot of actually couples breaking up because of family interference. In India, for example, and I write about that in the book. In India, a lot of wives, after they get married, move in with the parents of the husband until they can move out, so into their own place. So again, it's a very interesting topic, and I think there's a lot to take into consideration.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I think it's all about setting up healthy boundaries from the beginning.
True.
And before you move in with someone else's parents, like, you should know you wouldn't be able to, you know, function with your parents even under the same roof. So it takes a lot of work and patience. Yeah. I've learned it. So, you know.
You're the role model here.
Yes, absolutely. The veteran of the game. But it's all about setting up healthy boundaries, and that's it. Yeah. So we are moving on to the next one, which is he drives a super expensive car, but he has no money in his pocket.
Look, you know,
or she,
Look, I work in Dubai, and I see that all the time.
Is it also a cultural thing?
No, it's just because a lot of people, when they go to Dubai, they fly over and they rent out a Bugatti for, like, you know, a couple of €1,000 a day, just to kind of like snap pictures on Instagram and Tinder, right? Just to kind of show off for a quick mating strategy, let's call it like that. So, well, I mean, what's to be said about this? Look, if you care a lot about, you know, materialism and that kind of stuff, I don't think it's going to get you far in life, because what's very interesting is that I'll give you a data perspective to this question. What they find, like in credit card information, like because we can tell a lot of behavior based on people's credit card behavior, like payments, what they pay. Okay. You can predict, for example, when a man is going to divorce from his wife or his partner.
He invests in himself much more?
No, he just excessive spending.
Okay.
So credit card companies, and people don't know this, can predict certain behaviors based on your spending patterns.
Are they hiring? Getting all the juicy gossips ahead of time?
It's fascinating, right? It's fascinating that they can predict this kind of information from just purely like a data perspective, and so anyway, so coming back to this discussion around materialism is that what they also find is that it's mostly they call it the poor extroverts. The poor extroverts, so specific personality type, those who don't have much income but are very extroverted and want to show off, those are the ones who buy or rent the very expensive stuff as a way to kind of show something that they don't have. And that's interesting because so even within specific customer profiles or credit card client profiles. There are certain profiles of people, like if you have a specific personality type, that they would actually want to show up in a certain way. So they call them the poor extroverts because they don't have the money to sustain that lifestyle, but they want to have it just to kind of show off some kind of worth that might not be there. So red flag.
Ooh, thank you. That's the answer I wanted to hear. Good.
Yeah, I would say red flag.
So now we're moving on to a question that I actually wanted to ask. I have a friend, she said she doesn't believe in love.
Yeah.
And this is not her being traumatized over the years. It's just her state of mind from the beginning. She believes in money. Yeah. And she always wanted to date men for money. And so she found a guy who is now her husband, and they have a shit ton of money. And they are happy together, but from my point of view, it looks so lame. I could never. I would rather be living in a card box under the bridge, poor as hell, than living in, expensive cars, expensive places, and have zero love. Is this life? But is it possible for people to actually feel this way, or is this just a wall build up?
Do you mean in the sense of, can it be real? Like just going for someone for money? Do you mean that was?
Yeah, and being actually happy with it. I never wanted love. I mean, it's both of them are like this. They're actually a perfect match when you, from my point of view.
It's interesting. I mean, look, there's someone out there for everyone, right? So if you want someone on a materialistic reasons, then you'll find that person. If someone wants to be with you for their materialistic reasons, exchange. Then you'll find each other, right? Yeah. And if there's demand, there's going to be supply, right? So there's a fair exchange. And look, we live in a world also that's very uncertain. And what's very interesting, I'll give you more kind of like a more macro perspective to why this individual behavior is happening. When we live in a world that is less certain, volatile, financially not well, there's also this financial insecurity, right? And so what happens then is a lot of people will be more mindful of having a partner that secures them because, in this kind of evolutionary perspective, we want to survive, right? We want to survive. And so maybe that can also mean, well, let me find a financially secure partner to help me survive, right? So that could be a mindset that could influence more people's decisions in a current economic state to decide that would be someone to go for. Okay, you have the traditional gold digger, right? That's
New Age.
They're there as well, and those people will only target people with money and wealth and whatever. That's always going to be there, and there's always going to be wealthy people that want to engage in that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's fair play for both.
It's a fair play for both.
That's actually a good, when I see a very grown up women, divorced, having adult kids, and with a younger man, I'm like, if you can afford it, good for you. Yeah. Having fun. And I've also read in your book an interesting chapter about it that says if she wants a younger man, it's mostly because they're easier to talk to, easier to communicate with them. Which is something I agree 100%. I mean, my husband is only 2 years younger than me, but it makes a difference still. Yeah.
It's really interesting because I try to position, there's one chapter, I think it's chapter 17, where I talk about age-desperate relationships, where there's a difference between the age of minimum of 10 years between men and women, or less, right? But that kind of measurement in terms of age difference. And traditionally, and this is cross-culturally around the world, men would date younger, right? So, and it's socially accepted that older men...
It's a standard now.
Yeah, 40s and 50s will date someone in their 20s, right? But what we're now seeing is the reverse. We're seeing, like you're saying, more women now dating younger, being much more assertive about their dating life. And okay, so for men, they said there's an evolutionary perspective to dating younger because procreation. So what is the evolutionary perspective for older women with younger men? It's also evolutionary. It's also from the perspective that a younger man will date an older woman because they help him become more rounded. They find someone who is...
So she's mothering him in a way?
No, not mothering. I think there's a difference there. Yeah, of course you're going to have guys that have mommy issues.
Yeah.
You're going to have them. but they're also like, they're, let's say women who are 40s and 50s are less jealous maybe than a girl of 24, 25.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're more financially secure. And also I think a lot of women who are older might want to change the traditional roles. They want to be the one in charge. They want to be the one that provides. And actually what I also write in the book is that women in their 40s and 50s who actually date younger actually improve, not for everyone, but you do see an increase in sexual satisfaction in many different ways, because younger men want to prove themselves to the older woman. And so it's very interesting. So, and also a woman who's like in her 40s and 50s might not put certain brakes on themselves in terms of wanting to try stuff that they might do when they may be a little bit younger. Of course, time changes, of course, in that perspective. But let's say the woman of 40 and 50 today versus, back then. So I think there's a lot of good things to say about it. Plus also the stereotypes that are now kind of steadily breaking away, because still older women are still stereotyped, right? As a cougar, if you're like in your 40s and 50s, 60s, and you're dating younger, there's a stereotype that is put also in TV, like, American Pie and, unfortunately...
Stifler's mom.
Yes, yeah. Stifler's mom, exactly.
How should I not know that?
Oh my goodness, that's so true. But take Emmanuel Macron and Brigitte Macron, 24, 25 years difference between them. Oh, yeah. Yeah, and more of those role models, Ashton Kutcher with, I forgot who his ex-wife was, but also there's a 15-year-old difference in that. And I think steadily these stereotypes are changing, and I think that's great for women.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
I think it's time for women to gain more power. Yeah. And as long as we have to talk about it, it means we're not even close to being there yet. Yeah. So
step by step.
Step by step. I believe my daughter-in-laws will have, a lot to say about this and will be happy.
And they've got a wise mother to also guide them.
At least I hope. I mean, I know we're not going to live together, but everything else, I will welcome them. So since we're talking about men-women relationship, I wanted to talk about families as well. Many of these issues come from not having the greatest relationship with your parents, or what I've seen lately and in my time when I was a child, emotionally unavailable parents, and just this Balkan toxic cultures where you beat your children, where you don't let boys cry because that's for little girls, where you just invalidate their feelings from the beginning, and then later on they grow up and they become these toxic men that cannot deal with their emotions. They're fighting around the nightclubs and doing drugs and all that thing. Yeah. So I'm just wondering, do you think we're going in like better direction? Are we seeing lights
at the end of the tunnel?
At the end of this tunnel?
Yeah, it's interesting. The psychodynamic perspective, in psychology, understanding how your childhood impacts your behaviors today, right?
Is it like 100% about your childhood?
I mean, no. I mean, behavior is complex. There's so many factors that influence behavior. There's genetics, there's biological aspects, there's emotional aspects, environmental and social aspects, rearing. So there's so many factors that influence. But you have to think it from a developmental perspective, because our early years, our developmental years, up to 6, 7 years old, we are very heavily, that's when you kind of, and I talk about that in the book, I say it's kind of, compared to your iOS system. You have an iOS system from a computer, right, from the Mac. And 6 to 7, you are, at 0.6, 0.7 version. But that 0.6, 0.7 version is foundational for how all the other versions will further develop. It's like building a program, right? You build on top of it. And so maybe let's say you're 29 today. And so that means, and then that's how I describe it in the book, you're now at version 2.9. And maybe at version 2.9, you're surviving the world, but a lot of your behaviors still stem from how you were brought up, the experiences you had when you were younger. Remember, they don't define you, right? It doesn't mean that if you had a bad childhood, you're going to have just red flags in your life, or you're not going to be supportive in many of the behaviors that you provide to people or engage with in society. But there's a high likelihood that there'll be something that will kind of stem out of that, right? In a not so good way. And so, you know, your upbringing and your initial experiences do have a huge impact on you, because you're often not aware of that. Because remember, if you are now at 2.9, 29 years old, I'm at 4.7 almost next month. So I'm already, you know,
Happy birthday.
1 month to go.
So that
still
makes you, what are you?
Taurus.
Taurus?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah,
good,
yeah,
good.
I'm a Taurus.
Yeah.
But definitely my 0.6 and 0.7, though I'm not fully conscious of it. Of course, I've tried to work on many of my own things in the past, but they still affect me today, right? And then when I talk to people about this, or clients, or you know, I tell them, you can't go back and change 0.6. You can't go back and change 0.7, but you can build upon it, and you can learn how to be better, and learn how to maybe take a bad experience and reframe it in a different way, so that you can grow from it. So that when you come to 3.0, it's 30 years old, or 3.1, that version of you, that you can make that version of you much more powerful. So coming back to your question, yes, I do think that your childhood and your upbringing has a huge impact on how you behave and think today, but it doesn't always have to be something negative. Yeah.
Yeah, you can learn from it, and as soon as you are aware of it, means you're on the right path.
Yeah.
To the cleansing part. But I think usually in relationships, it's very important to understand each other and to know where you're coming from.
Right.
For example, my husband and I, we have a totally different life story. Mine is tougher, his is softer.
Yeah.
So he had a lot to work, you know, a lot of work to understand me and my point of view, and to understand why I'm hyper independent. And, you know, he had to have a lot of patience for me to, you know, put some dependence into him.
Right.
So, yeah, it takes a lot.
And I still need to answer the part of that question that you asked about, is there light at the end of the tunnel? And I think because of social media, because of more knowledge sharing than we had in the past, I think we're becoming more aware of things. And it doesn't mean that things are going to change, but it does make things easier to talk about. And I think that's so critical, right? That you now have the ability to talk about it. And what you were saying about when you have a relationship, I think one of the most beautiful things of acknowledging, but also one of the challenging things about acknowledging relationships, is that the moment that you are in a relationship with somebody, remember that you're going to unearth the wounds and pains emotionally in that person by being in an emotional relationship with them. And sometimes, you know, we think that the other person is going to be the medicine to our existing pains, but then how can they know about what the medicine is that you need to have? And so it's so normal when you are in a relationship with them. Don't only think about the great things that they bring to you, because you will open their wounds. So are you willing to be with them to help them heal? Are you there to be with them to help them to overcome some of their issues that they have, trust issues, you know, and whatever issues they might have. So I think part of being in a relationship, and you've just said it, is also about, can you help each other heal in that process?
I love that. You're going to make me emotional.
I can see it.
Yeah, don't do this. Not in the first episode.
No, let's wait for next one.
I don't have any tissues here. So I think from this we can talk about, you know, relationships that don't really function in the way that you were saying they are supposed to. So now we're in this long relationship or marriage. Everything is just super boring, super stale. We don't understand each other. Yeah. And now comes the hard part, you know. And from my point of view as a woman, it can also be other way around, of course. But, you know, you are now being cheated on. Yeah. And you just found out. And how do you deal with this? Do you believe that there's a change, like that these men or women can change? And what do you do to even stop this from coming? Like, how do you, because I think you can see it coming. If you don't have any sex for months or years, like, you can see it coming. Yeah. I don't know. I don't think this is a good reason to cheat on someone. I think you should be fair and honest up front. But if it does happen, how do you deal with this? Yeah,
how to deal with cheating. Look, before we talk about that, I think it's important to also realize that sometimes some people in relationships don't have sex, sometimes for years. Yeah, and there could be so many factors impacting why that happens, and they still decide to stay together. And also don't cheat. And so that's an interesting thing. A lot of what's very interesting, I think, as a statistic, especially amongst the younger generation, is that they're having less sex.
Why is that?
I don't know.
Is it the porn industry, maybe?
I think maybe it's a multitude of factors. I think our mobile devices have to do with it as well. People get more satisfaction and dopamine hits from online engagements now, and so they care more about being with people friendship-wise. They build, friendships with people that I've never even met in the real life, like online. So it's interesting to look why, and I don't have the exact answer to that, but I was very shocked also to hear that, this generation of 20, 18, 19, 20 to 27, 28 are less sexually active than previous generations at that age. So,
but we talk about sex so much. I would have never.
It could also be kind of like country perspective.
Yes.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know the exact date on this, but it's interesting to mention, right? Because it's not something you would expect. That's the case. So we need to look into that. Maybe that's a follow-up question for maybe some of your future guests, or for us to kind of further investigate. But I know that that's something that's happening. People are having less sex nowadays, and specifically younger people. So coming back to the question on how to deal if you're in a relationship and you're not having any sex anymore, and apparently your partner is cheating on you. And can you see it coming, right? Sometimes you can feel it. Sometimes you can see it. Maybe your partner is, acting a little differently, wearing new perfume, buying new clothes that they don't normally wear and dress up.
Listening to the whole new music genre.
Yeah.
Working out.
One thing I come in again from a behavioral perspective, new moves in the bedroom.
Okay.
That I think is also an interesting thing to look into. Like when your partner has new moves in the bedroom, like where did that come from? Like if it was something like, yeehaw, I want to try something, like ride
Why are we trying this 15 years after we met?
It's
who taught you this?
It's like, wait a minute, this is a bit strange. So, I mean, they don't have to mean that it's exactly that, but there are indicators, right? And I talk about that as well in the book, like what are those indicators? But how to deal with it? I mean, look, cheating has been around since, since forever. And we talk about it, and also the fact that again, there's going to be proponents on the side of, well, we're biologically wired to have more partners, and there's going to be that part of the camp that's going to argue for that, and there's going to be people who are going to say no, we believe in marriage and one partner for life.
Penguins. Like penguins.
But I think Esther Perel, this relationship, psychologist, I think she said it so well that in today's world, we should not be concerned about one partner for life. We should be much more concerned that you have one partner in one relationship, right? And because apparently it's so easy to find someone else nowadays. We can get so distracted by something. You just pop on your mobile phone. You're not happy in life. Within 5 minutes, you found someone to do something with. So life has made cheating much more easier, and I think people's attitudes towards that is also changing. For a lot of people, cheating it's a deal breaker, right? It's done and not going to happen. But I think a lot of people are now seeing that people are cheating more than they were maybe. Well, I'm not sure if that's more than before, but I think online platforms are facilitating, cheating much more easier nowadays than they were before.
You literally have ads popping up of all different sites.
Anyone
but you can actually see if someone from your household is cheating by having algorithm change under your Wi-Fi. Have you seen that coming? I mean, if you scroll through your partner's explore page example, and there's just a whole bunch of kitties.
Why are you looking in their phone?
Who, me? No, this is other person's story. Okay, she's a red flag again. Are you not doing? Have you ever done that?
No, I don't look in people's.
You're such a green flag.
No,
I could never.
No, there has to be some level of trust. Yeah. I think that's really important in relationships, right? You have to be able to trust each other, because, and this relates also to cheating. In psychology, there's something called the slippery slope, right? And also projection. And we project our concerns and fears, maybe sometimes our hidden desires, as jealousy onto other people, right? And so or we project it onto people, believing that they're going to do that we have in our minds, or it really is trust issues. And I think when we project things onto people that don't have, are not cheating, eventually they might cheat because, hey, if you're going to start blaming me and treating me like I'm someone that's cheating, well, why not? You know, that's I don't say that always happens, but that is sometimes an unfortunate consequence when you deal with trust issues in the relationship. And I want to check where you're going. I want to check what you're doing. Show me your phone. Show me your text. You know, that isn't great for relationships at all. You know, it's no.
But it's not good for you as well, because
it's not good for you as well. Yeah.
Total crap when you go through a person's phone and you do it as if you were robbing a bank. Like, just I'm going to do it fast. I have to find something.
I need to find something. Yeah,
and it's a whole, you know.
Yeah. And eventually you'll find something, but it might not be what it is, what it truly is.
But do you think nowadays, when the internet is offering just so much, do you think if someone is watching porn behind your back and you have not agreed on that, do you think that's cheating? Is that a form of cheating? That was a question asked by my followers. I wasn't the one asking it.
You know, I get that question as well.
Yeah.
I get that question from my followers as well. And I don't, in my perspective, I don't think pornography is cheating, right? You know, I hear from a lot of stories from people that say, well, you know, they're married, they have kids together, and they watch porn, right?
Together?
No.
Okay.
Yeah. He watches porn.
Okay.
But you can also hear about she watching porn.
Yeah.
But I don't see pornography as cheating. But I think that brings us to a much more bigger question, actually. How do we define cheating? And I think this is a very, very powerful question. Because often people think cheating is only physical cheating, like the intimate kissing with someone else that's not your partner, having sex with someone else that's not your partner. But you know, that's physical cheating, right? But there's much more to that in today's world. And this is why I think these kind of questions are popping up in people's minds, because there's also something called emotional cheating. So having an emotional affair with somebody, but not being intimate with them.
No, that's a tough one.
Yeah.
If you had to pick one, I would go for physical cheating. Like, just go sleep with someone. Please don't bond with them. And if you had a gun to your head and like pick one and then stay with this person, that would be a physical one.
Yeah. And it's so interesting that you say that, because what's interesting with emotional cheating, you can't get a divorce on, right? Physical cheating, yes, but emotional cheating, not. And what's more interesting is that who do you think cheats more emotionally, men or women?
Women, I think.
Women, yeah. But and that's why women find emotional cheating worse. See that I said like, yeah?
I'm going to stop talking.
Okay, but let's talk about on the physical side. Yeah. So who cheats more physically?
Do you know what? I think men.
Yeah.
Off the top of my head, I think men. But nowadays, I've learned that if I think one way, it doesn't mean everyone is the same. And I see a lot of men being hurt by women.
Yeah.
So, but still, I will say men, because I've heard more stories related to men cheating.
Yeah. So, of course, physical, men cheat more. And various, I mean, it's hard to kind of get good data on this, but there are various sources of data. I cited it in the book as well, that 1 out of 5 men cheat in a long-term relationship. So it's 20%. For women, it's about 13% in terms of, but emotional cheating, women cheat more. And what's also very interesting is that why we don't have really good statistics, 'cause to your point, I do think there's a lot of more women that actually cheat than we find in data.
They're better at hiding, I think.
Well, that's a good point. And I think it's hiding it and justifying their behaviors as not cheating.
No, that's bad. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's just, how do you say this? It's what we don't like men doing to us. Yeah. I slept with her because you never wanted to sleep with me. Yeah. So I'm not really...
But they don't see that maybe as cheating then?
No.
Do you see what I mean? It's more kind of retribution, or I'm getting back at you. And
have you thought about talking about it?
Well, and I talk about it in the book.
No, not you. I meant like...
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Before they cheat.
Before they cheat, yeah. No, I mean, that would be the more green flag behavior, right? Instead of just kind of doing what they do. But, we cheat, and there's multiple reasons why we cheat. One of them is, of course, revenge. Revenge is one of the main sources for cheating as well. It's not just having a sexual pleasure or trying to think you can get away with it. Revenge is a very common reason why people cheat, as a way to retaliate and get back. And that does happen a lot.
Yeah, I can understand that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it takes a lot to get there, but when you do get there, I think many women who do cheat for revenge never actually go back to their original partners.
Interesting.
I think it's from my perspective and the perspective of my girlfriends.
Yeah.
And we're all different.
Yeah.
It's very hard to go back and sleep with the person you cheated on after, 6, 7, 8 times they cheated on you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. And one more thing is digital cheating, digital infidelity. And I think this has become a really big problem that people are not realizing, because like you said, if your husband or boyfriend likes another girl's on Instagram's profile picture or a picture that comes up on the feed, is that considered cheating? For some women, that is considered cheating already, while for other people, it's like sexting, on your phone, or DMs with a girl who you don't know is considered cheating. So what's interesting, because the digital world has made access to people instantaneous. You can DM anyone nowadays. And because of that, then what is now considered cheating in a digital perspective? And I think a lot of people, because there's so much variability in beliefs about what is cheating there, that there's a discrepancy. Like, I don't think a lot of partners actually talk about what is acceptable behavior and what is unacceptable behavior in an online setting, right? Of course, staying in contact with your ex for the potential of meeting up with them again, that's definitely cheating. Keeping a contact with someone secret is that's what I say in terms of digital cheating. I said, the moment that your partner hides their name or turns the phone upside down, changes the password so that you don't know who they're talking to online, maybe they've never met with them, but are sexting, kind of, texting to them, that is, in my eyes, considered cheating. But some people might even find liking someone else's profile cheating. And I think that's becoming an even bigger problem nowadays, affecting a lot of relationships.
But it's really hard to define what's considered cheating and what's not considered cheating, because your partner might be saying, I did this because you did this.
Yeah.
He will be projecting his own fault onto you. Yeah. And then when you tell them, okay, then if this is a good behavior, can I do it too?
Yeah.
Then it's not acceptable longer. So I think that's also an answer. Sometimes people don't have to tell you, I'm an asshole. I don't think you should be with me. Sometimes this is also a way to understand that he's being an asshole. Yeah. So I think in the beginning, as I said, this book is such a good book because I think it's so good for singles out there or broken ones to read, because it's very important that in the beginning of your relationship with someone, even dating, you read those red flags and you dump his ass before it goes too far.
Well, and let me
before you meet the parents, before you move in with them, before you get alone together.
Yeah, let's put some slight side notes to that. Some red flags are redder than others. Some red flags are red as a lobster, right? And some of them mean run as fast as you can, right? Like you said, dump his ass.
Yeah.
But those are very minimal. Most red flags are basically an opportunity for you to reflect on why you consider them a red flag. And I would not, because I think a lot of people, the moment they see the first red flag, they run. But maybe that means that you are the red flag. Why? Because maybe you have abandonment issues. And if you have abandonment issues, you will be the first to maybe let go of someone because you don't want to be hurt. So it's a kind of like self-protection mechanism. And so I want to mention that. I think that's very important because we're so easy nowadays just to kind of, red flag, I'm out. There's a minimal amount of red flags that really make you run. And I would say that if you are evaluating a partner for the first time, try to identify if you can see a couple of red flags as a pattern of behavior before you make a decision to run. And so in the book, red doesn't mean red only. It means reflect, engage, decide.
Oh.
It's an acronym.
I love this.
Reflect, engage, decide.
Okay.
So don't run because we're making too quick decisions nowadays. They're good, but sometimes it can hurt us in finding a partner And today we're so easy to say, okay, bye, bitch, I'm out, right? That's the mindset that a lot of people have nowadays. And I want us to kind of step back and reflect and say, no, don't immediately say bye. I want you to think carefully. Is there anything, maybe I'm the red flag and that's why I'm running away. And if we don't learn how to address red in both of us more effectively, then I think that we will find it very hard to sustain long-term relationships in the future.
I think one of them might be the biggest one for me, that I sincerely believe is the reddest of all the red flags. It's love bombing. And I think so many women or men are not even aware of it. She's like on the third date, she's never had anyone love her properly in her life and show her true colors and love her for them. Yeah. She had a man telling her, I love you, and she's in a cloud nine. Okay, I'm marrying him. No, he's going to beat your ass. Like, run. Don't ever fall for it. There's a certain amount of period of time that you should spend with someone 100%. And get to know them, and then see if you love the person or
Absolutely.
not. Yeah, it takes time.
Love bombing is very dangerous.
Yeah.
It's a manipulation tactic, right? And just for the audience, maybe your audience, you've spoken about love bombing before to your audience, but just for people to know, it's a manipulation tactic where, and often the narcissists love bomb, but it doesn't mean that you love bomb, you're a narcissist. Not all narcissists, not all love bombers are narcissists, but it's a very typical thing for a narcissist to do, right? Especially when getting to know someone. So they basically try to form a much more faster emotional connection with you, and they do that by showering you with like flowers and gifts and attention and passionate sex.
Do they actually feel it?
Well, this is really interesting. I love that question because they don't fall in love with you.
Oh, they fall in love with who they are or who you see them.
No, they fall in love with an idealized version of you in their minds. That is so interesting, right? Yeah. So they and I want people to realize that, because they don't fall in love with you. They put you on this pedestal, right? They put this into this beautiful version of you, which is non-sustainable, because often 2 or 3 months into the relationship, something will happen that shatters that mirror. And then you know what happens to a mirror? You can't put it back together. So they can never look at you anymore like they did before. So that's when that kind of devaluation phase. So after this love bombing and attention giving, etc., happens, there's a moment that it breaks, and then they start to devalue you, and they start lying to you, and they start gaslighting you and using you. And you're thinking, what am I doing wrong? No, give me the attention that you gave me before. And you want to kind of...
I must be the problem.
It must be me, I must be... Right, exactly. And it's a manipulation tactic that I don't think all love bombers are aware of, but those who are aware, it's very manipulative. It's very dangerous. It's seen as abuse in many countries around. I think in the UK, just recently, they passed a law to criminalize love bombing, right? And but unfortunately, it happens a lot. And I don't have the statistics on this, but based on my interaction with people, I find that it's more of a red flag in men than it is in women. Though both men and women love bomb, I find it more for men to do more than women actually love bombing.
I knew it. Yeah, I think we in these ages and these days we're a bit incapable of doing this, because we have these walls built up around ourselves, and all the pressure from the public, and you have to be a feminist, but then you have to be a mother, you have to work, you have to all these kind of things that just make you vulnerable sometimes. And I find women, when they start dating, always saying, I don't want a relationship, they will break me again, it's so much more fun like this. So then when this kind of person comes around, I feel like they smell it as the best possible victim. Okay, this one is broken, I'm gonna
absolutely
break her.
Absolutely. It's because to your point, a lot of people are not getting that satisfaction from love anymore, from relationships. The dating world has become super toxic because of dating apps, right? Dating apps have changed dating into a numbers game. And so people are giving up on dating. And so when you've not had someone that's giving you any attention, you feel deprived of attention. You don't feel that you're loved, and then all of a sudden this person, comes along and gives you more than you actually... It's too good to be true. it often is too good to be true. But if you feel that, and then all of a sudden you're just like, oh God, I can see this is what some people think. I can see all the red flags. But you know what? I haven't had any attention in so many years. I love you too.
Yeah, it's like disco lights to me, you know.
Do you know what I mean?
Red flags.
Yeah. And that's also maybe a really good point to make, because even though we see the red flags, we might ignore them because we just feel that we haven't had that kind of attention in such a long time, but it can hurt us down the road, right? So.
Well, thank you for all the words and all the talk we had today. So I think the time is up. You have so much things to do today.
Thank you for having me over.
Thank you so much.
We should do a second episode soon.
I would love to because I have like 1,000 more questions, but I want to be respectful to you and your time. So just one final question. Yeah. How do you end things if you're in love so madly and you know it's not good for you? How do you end this? What's the proper way to just end things?
A relationship that's not good for you.
Yeah.
That's a tough one. I wish I had one answer for that. I think there's multiple ways of how to end a relationship, but I'll give you the green flag behavior of how to do that. I think it's always good to kind of communicate to the other person and say why it's not working. See it as an exit interview for a company, right? Tell them, look, I've decided this is not going to work. It's not been good for us. We're very toxic together, or we can't help each other to get out of, our old patterns of behavior. We're not treating each other well, or you're not treating me well, and I don't like this. And I think I try to put up my boundaries. Explain the situation, their behaviors, and the impact it has had, and say that's it. But in some occasions, it's dangerous.
Yeah, that was my.
Yeah, sometimes it's dangerous to stay with someone, and there's no point for reasoning. Don't try to prove yourself, because sometimes they do that, right? Some people do that. I need to prove myself and show, that I'm the right. I'm in the right. Don't just let it go. I don't want to say block them, ethically block them, right?
Block them.
Yeah, but block. But if your mental and physical health is being jeopardized, get the hell out of there.
Yeah.
Please don't stay there. You are worth so much more. Do not allow yourself to be jeopardized, abused. Get out.
Even if you have kids.
Especially
if you have kids.
Well, look, and that's also a very, very hard choice, right? Because when you have kids, you need to think of so many factors, but your physical, mental health is so important to you, but also, as we talked about at the beginning of the show, how important your initial years are and how it impacts you later. So if it's not good for your kids and their upbringing, then maybe you should get out.
Happy parent, happy child. It will always be like this.
Happy wife, happy husband. Also.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So we haven't had enough time to talk about all the chapters you have in your wonderful book.
Yeah.
But there's just so many things about work red flags.
Yeah.
Your family's red flags, your husband and wife red flags. So I think it's just what you have to read, and I am so looking forward to reading the entire book. I'll be so much wiser and smarter. And if this was before my first marriage, you would have saved many years, but we regret nothing and we learn from it. So thank you so much for coming here today.
Thank you
and
for
I
having
hope
me.
I get to see you soon.
I hope so too. Nice to meet you. Thank you for having me here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you for watching. I don't know how to log out the show. It's my first time, so until next episode.